What if the biggest difference between life in the United States and life in Europe isn't how much tax you pay, but what you actually get back for it? Every paycheck, every purchase, every property bill quietly answers the same question: where does your money really go? Americans often believe Europeans are taxed into oblivion. Europeans often believe Americans are one medical emergency away from financial collapse. Both sides think the other has it worse. But when you strip away slogans and politics and look at how taxes actually function in daily life, the story becomes far more nuanced. Before we break this down, take a second to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. This isn't about defending one system or attacking the other. It's about understanding what you're paying for, what you're not, and why the same dollar or euro feels so different depending on where you live. Let's start with the basic structure. The United States uses a relatively low tax, high private cost model. Europe, broadly speaking, uses a higher tax, high public service model. Neither approach is accidental. Each is the result of history, political culture, and deeply different ideas about the role of government. The American system was built around individual choice and limited state involvement, while most European systems evolved after wars and economic crises that pushed societies toward collective solutions. In Europe, taxes are more centralized and more visible upfront. Income taxes are higher, and value-added taxes apply to most goods and services. Payroll taxes are substantial. But the philosophy is different. Many major life expenses are The largest portion of the U.S. federal budget goes to Social Security and healthcare programs like Medicare and Medicaid. These programs primarily serve retirees, the disabled, and low-income individuals. Defense spending is another major category, reflecting America's global military role and international commitments. Interest on national debt has become increasingly significant by the mid-2020s due to higher interest rates and decades of borrowing. Education, infrastructure, housing, scientific research, and welfare programs receive comparatively smaller shares at the federal level, with many responsibilities pushed down to states. This creates a paradox. Americans pay taxes, but many still feel like they're on their own. That's because large portions of U.S. public spending are targeted rather than universal. If you're working age, middle class, and relatively healthy, you may not directly benefit from many government programs. At least not immediately. You still pay for healthcare privately. You still save for retirement through personal accounts. You still pay tuition or student loans. Your taxes support systems you might only fully access decades later, if at all. European tax revenue is heavily reinvested into universal services. Healthcare is the most obvious example. In most European countries, healthcare is funded through taxes or mandatory social contributions. You don't receive large medical bills because the system is designed to absorb that cost collectively. Education is another major destination for tax money. Public universities are free or low cost in many countries, funded by the same taxes people complain about during election season. This difference changes how people emotionally experience taxation. Americans often feel they pay taxes and then pay again. Europeans feel they pay once and access later. The sense of security is built into the system, not something you have to assemble on your own. Let's talk about healthcare more deeply, because it's where the contrast becomes unavoidable. In the US, healthcare spending per capita is among the highest in the world. Yet outcomes are mixed, and access is uneven. Taxes fund part of the system, but private insurance fills the gaps, at a cost. Employers, individuals, and taxpayers all pay into overlapping structures. The result is complexity, administrative overhead, and financial anxiety that never fully goes away. Education follows a similar pattern. Americans fund public education through local property taxes, which creates inequality between regions and school districts. Higher education is partially public, partially private, and heavily financed through debt. European countries centralize education funding, reducing cost barriers and regional disparities. Again, taxes replace private expense, and long-term debt becomes less common. Defense is another stark contrast. The US spends far more on military power than any European country. This is reflected in the tax structure. European nations rely more on alliances and collective security. Americans effectively pay a global security premium, while Europeans benefit indirectly from that spending without bearing the same cost. Transportation shows how taxes shape daily life. In the US, taxes fund highways, but public transit is often underfunded, forcing individuals to own cars. In Europe, taxes heavily subsidize trains, buses, and urban infrastructure. You may pay more in fuel taxes, but you need a car less often. One system externalizes cost to the individual. The other absorbs it collectively. Retirement is another major divide. In the US, Social Security provides a foundation, but most people rely on private retirement accounts tied to markets. In Europe, public pensions funded by taxes play a larger role. This doesn't mean Europeans don't worry about retirement. But the baseline security is stronger, and extreme outcomes are less common. So why do Americans often feel overtaxed, while Europeans often complain but accept the system? Because Americans associate taxes with loss of freedom. Europeans associate taxes with protection. One culture emphasizes personal responsibility. The other emphasizes collective responsibility. Neither is inherently right or wrong, but each comes with trade-offs that shape daily life in powerful ways. By January 2026, debates on both sides have intensified. In the US, there's growing frustration that taxes don't translate into visible benefits for working families. In Europe, there's concern that high taxes limit economic growth and innovation, especially as populations age and workforces shrink. No system is immune to pressure. The real question isn't who pays more, it's who carries more risk. In the US, risk is individual. You keep more control, but failure is costly. In Europe, risk is shared. You give up some flexibility, but gain predictability. So where does your money go? In America, taxes fund a safety net with large gaps, and you're expected to build bridges across those gaps yourself. In Europe, taxes fund a thicker net that catches more people, but limits how high you can climb without friction. Understanding this changes the debate. Taxes aren't just numbers. They're values written into law. If this breakdown helped you understand the trade-offs more clearly, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who thinks the answer is simple. And now I want to hear from you. Would you rather trust yourself with more money and more risk, or trust the system with more money and more security, and why? Drop your answer in the comments below.